US Secretary of State Antony Blinken hoping for more than just a deal between Hamas and Israel. Eager to restart stalled ceasefire talks, he says Hamas should accept a new Israeli proposal.
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. And in this moment, the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas. They have to decide, and they have to decide quickly.
Hamas dismisses accusations it's delaying a ceasefire deal. The group that controls Gaza blames the Israeli Prime Minister for putting his own political survival ahead of a lasting agreement. And mediators, Qatar and Egypt, are continuing to explore chances for a new one, but are becoming increasingly frustrated. Qatar's Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs says the biggest obstacle to lasting peace is the failure of the international community to solve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
A lot of efforts must be exerted to sort out the military escalation for the sake of all countries in our region. We need to bring peace to the Middle East. The international community has failed to find a solution to the Palestinian cause. Thus, we now see the bloodshed everywhere and every day in the Gaza Strip.
US officials have been trying to build consensus for a post-war Gaza. They initially said they want to see a new Palestinian Authority take over. And when President Mahmoud Abbas appointed a new prime minister, Hamas rejected the move as a betrayal. And there's another reason why the US wants a deal soon. The Americans believe a long-term political solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict could encourage Saudi Arabia and many Arab nations to establish diplomatic ties with Israel. Hashem Ahelbarra, Al Jazeera.
Let's get more from this, from our correspondent in occupied East Jerusalem. Bernard Smith is standing by for us. And that news emerging of what a deal might look like from the Israeli side, certainly being talked up by the US, Bernard.
Yes, it is. We've heard there in Hashem's report, Antony Blinken describing this as an extraordinarily generous proposal. We're now waiting to see if the Israelis travel on Tuesday to Cairo. They're ready to do that, they say, if Hamas is accepting the principles of this latest proposal and if there's something for them to continue talking about. Sources are saying that now Israel is willing to take perhaps something a bit less than 40 of the 133 captives still believed to be being held in Gaza. And in return for that, they're offering an initial period of a ceasefire and then something they call a period of sustained calm. And in return, the Israelis, Palestinians will also get the release of a lot of Palestinian prisoners. David Cameron, Britain's foreign minister, actually said it could ultimately be potentially thousands of Palestinian prisoners. So we're waiting to see if Hamas accepts the proposals that Israel has offered.
If only we had the joy of foresight, Bernard, because there are always stumbling blocks, aren't there? It's never easy to negotiate these sorts of things. What sort of things could be, or could hamper, you might say, the conversations that might happen in Cairo?
Well, it's how close the two sides get together on their differing demands. Hamas has always, in previous talks, been demanding a complete end to the fighting, a withdrawal of Israeli troops so that Palestinians can return to their homes, particularly in the north of Gaza. So it depends how this wording of a period of sustained calm that Israel is offering is interpreted by Hamas. And it also depends whether Benjamin Netanyahu can politically get away with this. One of his major calculations, as many of his critics will say, is whether he can survive politically. So he's obviously having to consider whether he can survive this offer politically. We already know the far right in Israel wants him to go ahead with an operation in Rafah. He is clear if there is any sort of ceasefire or pause in fighting, that operation in Rafah will inevitably get paused. Netanyahu calculating that he can perhaps get away with that and still survive politically.
Bernard, thanks very much for the update there. coming in from occupied East Jerusalem. Of course, we'll monitor events with Bernard through the evening. Joining us now on the telephone is Osama Hamdan. He's senior spokesperson for Hamas's political bureau. Joins us now. Mr. Hamdan, thank you for joining us on Al Jazeera. Can we just confirm, where is the Hamas delegation right now? Are they in Cairo or not? And have the talks begun with Egyptian mediators?
Well, thank you for having me. I can confirm that Hamas delegation, they have already arrived in Cairo, and I think now they have started the talks with the Egyptian mediators. And the concentration on those negotiations talks is about to understand the real position of the Israeli side, especially what it was, the paper which was introduced to Hamas contained some undefined issues which we need to know exactly what was the meaning of from the Israeli side.
OK, so what are your demands then right now? Because the ground realities seem to change day by day.
Well, Hamas' position is very clear. We are talking about 5 issues. We have to solve it together. A complete stop for the Israeli fight against Gaza. Second, a complete withdrawal. And the third one, the return of the people to their homes. The fourth one, the reconstruction of Gaza. And the fifth one, a fair exchange for prisoners. It's clear from the Israeli paper that they are still insisting on 2 major issues. They don't want a complete ceasefire, and they are not talking in a serious way about the withdrawal from Gaza. In fact, they are still talking about their presence in the Valley of Gaza, which means that they will keep continuing cutting Gaza into pieces. We have serious questions for the mediators. If there was positive answers, I think we can move forward.
The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, says the deal has been offered. It's incredibly generous as far as the Israelis are concerned. You won't really know how generous that is, will you, until your negotiating side has a chance to read the fine print?
Well, I can't understand how he's talking about this offer as seriously generous. He is a mediator, he's a supposed mediator, and he's supposed to be fair for both sides. In fact, the ideas which was introduced by the Israelis is not complete ideas. I think he is doing such a propaganda in order to push the things forward, especially he was talking to Arab leaders, and he understands that all the Arabs are willing to have a ceasefire and to stop the Israeli attack on Gaza. So he's using those words to show that there is something serious. In fact, without a complete withdrawal and without a real ceasefire, there is nothing to happen. The second point, stopping the attack against the Palestinians is not something generous. The attack itself is a crime. So when you stop a crime, you can't claim that it's a generous action from the Israeli side. They have to stop that. In fact, the United States has to make a real effort to stop that, not to providing Israel with $26 billion US dollars. 18 of them is for the military supporting the killing of the Palestinians in Gaza.
We saw Gulf leaders in Riyadh today issue a very strong statement to the US that they wanted to see a ceasefire, they wanted to see a negotiated peace. Yet Gazans are suffering famine, and that's being recorded and reported in the general populace. Are you and the fighters of Hamas willing to continue to fight despite the hardships facing many thousands?
Well, in fact, if there was a ceasefire and there was an international will to make an end for the occupation, Hamas will receive that in a very positive way. Our aim as Palestinians, our main goal is to liberate our lands. If that happened by the pressure of the international community and there was an end for the occupation, Hamas will welcome that for sure.
Osama Hamdan, senior spokesperson for Hamas's political bureau. Thanks for joining us.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.